This is Mousehole, a small Cornish community living by the sea and from the sea. Generations of men from this village have earned their livings in the waters off the Cornish coast. Like so many Cornish villages, it's steeped in history and tradition, not just of the fishing industry, but a traditional concern for all those who put to sea in boats. The embodiment of that concern was the lifeboat Solomon Brown. She was the very heart of the village. Well, now that heart has been ripped out, and Mousehole is a village in mourning. Like you and me and everyone at this time of year, Mousehole was preparing for Christmas. The decorations were put up, the lights were switched on. But the festive season came to an abrupt end when the storm blew up on Saturday night, and the lifeboat put to sea with 8 men who wouldn't return.
6 o'clock on Saturday night, in a ferocious storm, the Irish coaster Union Star, only 10 days old, had broken down off Wolf Rock. A nearby tug offered help, but negotiations over salvage apparently broke down. Later, a naval helicopter hovers over the Union Star, now in increasing trouble, but is beaten by the weather. 2 hours after the first alert, the Penlee Lifeboat is launched, skillfully into a huge beam sea. Another hour, and the lifeboat has miraculously rescued 4 of the 8 people aboard the coaster. It goes back for the rest, then silence. Worried officials launch other lifeboats to rescue the rescuers, but concern grows.
I've never been out in conditions like it, no, and neither has their lifeboat before. Although we have been out in bad weather, but nothing like what it was tonight.
Could you see anything at all?
See anything at all? From aboard our boat, all we could see was very high breaking seas all around us. That's all we could see.
What happens to people like you when a situation like this arises? What do you feel at this time?
Well, when you lose your friends from a neighbouring station, it's very difficult to say how you feel. It seems to stun one, you know? It seems to stun you.
Do you think there's any chance at all?
We always hope there might be, but it doesn't look very good at the moment.
The men of the Lizard return to the task that apparently claimed the lives of their colleagues. Then, close to Lamorna Cove, fears are confirmed. The Union Star has come aground, upside down and pounded by enormous seas. Desperately, Coast Guards go down in the vain hope of people surviving. Later, naval divers blast their way into the vessel, working under appalling conditions.
We had a job to stand up. The weather was ridiculous. It really was appalling.
What were you looking for?
Any sign of life from the vessel itself. Yeah, that's what I can say.
Did you find anything at all?
Nothing at all, no.
The upturned hull is now a symbol of tragedy for the coaster and the 8 men of Penlee. And a father talks about his son.
We lived in Cornwall for 3.5 years, and he was a fisherman in Newlyn, and he was on the lifeboat for 3 years.
Why did he want to do it?
I don't know. I suppose they're just men and men. He was a man amongst men.
What do you think about what happened last night?
I think it's the way he would have wanted to go. He loved the sea. That's the way he would have wanted to go. He's an hero, and he always will be, and so are the rest of the crew.
As wreckage of the Penlee boat, the Solomon Brown, comes ashore, 6 bodies are recovered. Hope is abandoned for the others. Experts agree that the lifeboat, recently tested for its self-righting ability, must have struck the coaster in that gallant attempt to take off the remaining 4 people. The saviour of 90 people over 21 years is reduced to a lorry load of splintered wood, and the Cornish Lifeboat Service has suffered one of its greatest tragedies.
Those events of Saturday night claimed the lives of 16 people, 8 of them the lifeboatmen from Mousehole. They leave behind 5 widows and 11 orphaned children. But now is the time for questions. Could the tragedy have been avoided? This salvage tug, the Noord Holland, was on station in Mounts Bay, awaiting just such an incident as happened. Her captain talked on the radio with the captain of the Union Star, but it seems they could not agree the financial terms for the salvage operation, so the tug remained at anchor.
We were on pilotage station at 6 o'clock, moving the pilot boat with the second coxswain of the lifeboat, and we overheard a conversation on the radio where the tug spoke to... Well, first of all, Land's End Coast Guard spoke to the casualty, who we couldn't hear the casualty speaking, but we heard the tug's name being mentioned by the Coast Guard, and then the tug spoke to the casualty, and he offered the casualty an open Lloyd's salvage agreement, and he would come immediately.
What does that mean, an open Lloyd's salvage agreement?
It means that the vessel who is trying to carry out a rescue operation will do the operation, and at some later date, through either negotiations in a court or by negotiations between the companies involved, they come to an agreement of the financial rewards, monetary rewards, as a result of a success. It has to be successful.
And this offer presumably was turned down by the skipper of the Union Star?
We didn't hear his reply, but from what the tug skipper said, he then said, well, if it has to be a contract, your company and my company must be in touch with each other, and if you need immediate assistance, there will be a delay. He then said, I will come to you on the conditions I've said.
I watched the boat and the tug coming closer and closer to the shore all the time, and the position was developing where no options were going to be left open to rescue the boat, and they were losing time, losing sea room all the time. If there was going to be action taken to save the boat, it had to be taken while they had sea room. And it appeared to me that while this indecision on taking a tow was going on, that at some time, to avert a tragic situation, there should surely have been some authority, a supremo, if you like, who could say, the situation has gone far enough, we are losing control of the situation, we must take control now, and you will do this, and the emergency services will apply, and take it away from the skipper, take it away from the tugman, and put all your efforts into getting to grips with the situation before it was obvious that there was going to be a total disaster.
There was?
Yes, indeed there was.
Well, what exactly happened in the dark and stormy seas on Saturday night and how the lifeboat Solomon Brown came to grief are now the subject of inquiries and investigations. Tonight, the owners of the Union Star said they made radio contact with the master within 10 minutes of being informed of the incident by Coast Guards. They say they told him to pick up the tow offered by the Dutch tug. It's the duty of the Coast Guards to control rescue operations. This afternoon, Mike Mackay asked a senior Coast Guard in Cornwall if the delay over the salvage question contributed to a disaster.
It's very difficult to say. I don't think it was a fatal delay. From the Coast Guard angle at Falmouth, they had all the information. The district controller, he put through a link call to the ship, and there was not, in the beginning stages, any real need for panic. We contacted the tug who was here at Penzance, and right at the very outset, within 3 minutes, they said they were proceeding. And then there were negotiations which we have no knowledge, because this can only be answered through the owners and the ship and the tug. We do not monitor all these frequencies.
But if there had been a swift settlement of the salvage terms, then it's very likely that the Union Star could have been towed into shore.
Very difficult with hindsight, with the weather conditions, which were absolutely atrocious. But this is a possibility. One has to keep all the options open at the moment.
What about the role of the Coast Guard in all this? Because it's been suggested that because of cutbacks and economies, the Coast Guard service is not as adequate or as extensive as it might be.
Well, I think personally it's improved a great deal. I was in London at the time, partly responsible for some of the reorganisation, and we have now got very, very good communication coverage. In this area, it is practically 100%, except in some of the very, very sheltered coves which have got cliffs over them. But the overall communication is excellent, and it is monitored by all the staff at Falmouth. They are in constant VHF monitoring on the distress frequency.
But do you think that this disaster was unavoidable?
Very difficult with hindsight. All sorts of things can happen in the planning of in any incident, but I think every step was taken in the initial stages to safeguard life and to ensure that this ship was got into tow satisfactorily.
The dead men's colleagues aboard the Senon lifeboat have joined in the search this morning for bodies and wreckage, just one of 20 boats out there searching those waters. In the meantime, the RNLI is conducting its own investigation to find out just what went wrong on Saturday night. It's being headed by its director, Rear Admiral Wilfred Graham, who this morning was at the scene of the disaster.
almost certainly any delay, anything that contributed to a delay was a bad thing.
So the disaster was perhaps avoidable?
Well, of course, that's too categorical a question to answer just like that, because I know that the sea conditions were absolutely ferocious all the way along this coast at that time, and it might be that the disaster was inevitable because of the breakdown of the coaster's engines.
What about the rundown of Coast Guard services? Could that have had an important bearing?
I wouldn't have thought. I don't really subscribe too much to the rundown of the Coast Guard. What the Coast Guard's been doing is rationalising their forces, and I believe that the Coast Guard communications particularly have been vastly improved over the past couple of years, and I don't believe there's any suggestion at all that lack of communications or anything like that was a contributory cause in this particular case.
For 21 years, the lifeboat Solomon Brown has guarded that notorious stretch of rocks off the tip of Britain. Over 90 people owe their lives to the courage of her crew, some of them decorated by the RNLI 6 years ago. Solomon Brown was old, due to go into reserve in 3 years' time, but only last April her ability to right herself was tested and proved by the RNLI. On Saturday, she was skippered by her cox for the last 11 years, fisherman Trevelyan Richards, aged 56. Among her crew were Stephen Madron, the mechanic, father of 2 children, and 43-years-old Nigel Brockman, father of 5 children. Coxswain Richards had apparently refused permission for one of Nigel Brockman's sons, young Neil, from joining the crew. In such conditions, he said he didn't want 2 men from the same family aboard. Others in the crew were Barry Torrey, John Blewett and Charles Greenhoff, all of them with families, and Kevin Smith and Gary Wales, who were in their early 20s. The tragedy has also been mentioned in Parliament today. In the House of Commons, the Speaker, Mr. George Thomas, paid tribute to the men of the Penlee Lifeboat.
Today, another victim was located. So far, 8 bodies out of the 16 who died have been taken from the sea. Meanwhile, the upturned hull of the Ocean Star remains as a memorial to the 8 people on board who lost their lives. And more pieces of the lifeboat Solomon Brown were salvaged today. At a news conference, the RNLI said it's most important that they find the boat's keel and engines. They would have sunk where the Solomon Brown met her end, and the institutions say this could provide vital information about what went wrong. With Mousehole still deep in mourning, there's news that the Department of Industry has appointed 2 inspectors to carry out an official government inquiry into a disaster which has left few members of this small community untouched.
As I said earlier, the tragedy has also been mentioned in Parliament today. In the House of Commons, the Speaker, Mr. George Thomas, paid tribute to the men of the Penlee Lifeboat.
I'm sure that I can speak for the House when I say that our heartfelt sympathy is with the people of Mousehole and with others who have suffered in this tragedy, that we are proud of the courage that was revealed by those concerned, and that it makes us humbly grateful that in this land there are people of that quality, but that the community should be grief-stricken on the very edge of Christmas adds to the sorrow which the whole nation will feel.
As usual with a disaster of this kind, particularly one so close to home, the public's true generosity has been quick to reveal itself. Penwith District Council led the way by setting up the first appeal, and that's been followed by several more. Institution members, fellow fishermen and ordinary members of the public, all wanting to convey their sorrow and sympathy with a gift of money. Last night at the Newlyn Male Voice Choir Carol Concert, the Mayor of Penzance took the opportunity to launch the Penwith Appeal.
We have lost 8 members of our community, brave men who went to sea to save others. And they've not come back. What can we do about it? I've already been told that there is a reserve crew waiting to man a boat. But we've not got a boat. I'm not asking you to subscribe to a boat. I'm asking you to subscribe to a fund for the dependents. We don't know what their future's going to be. Would you put yourself in their position?
But today the fishermen themselves met and decided to launch their own appeal for cash. But why set up such an appeal when the Penwith Council appeal is already underway?
Well, of course, we didn't know that Penwith were setting up an appeal. But we're now that we do know that, we want our appeal is being set up so that we can get that money to the people who need it urgently. And I'm talking about this week. It's that urgent. We must get it to them now.
So you're saying cash comes in, cash goes out straight away?
Cash comes in, cash goes out straight away. We're not going to hang on to cash. We'll give it out as soon as it comes in, and we want it in fast. Those people need that money this week.
How has the situation gone already?
It's very, very encouraging. People have been coming up to me in the street, putting cheques in my hand and cash, and I want them to continue to do that as much as they can, whenever they can. There's a great need for this cash now, this week. I can't stress that point too much.
Of course, 11 children lost their fathers in this week before Christmas.
That's right.
What are you hoping that they will do with the money?
It certainly won't replace their fathers or whatever, but it will help the situation a bit. You must remember that these men that we've lost, and they are our boys, they are the breadwinners of these families. There is no money coming in now, so we need it urgently for them, for this Christmas.
And the way to get donations to that appeal is to send them to this address: George Lorry, Penlee Lifeboat Disaster Fund, St Just, Penzance. And that appeal has already reached £2,500, but with the promise of much, much more. And the other main appeals: first, the official Penwith Council appeal, where you're asked to send donations to Barclays Bank, Penzance. The harbour master at Looe has started an appeal, and the address there is Barclays Bank, East Looe. And lifeboatmen in North Devon have launched their own appeal and are asking for donations to be sent to any branch of Lloyd's Bank.
As we've heard, the people who man lifeboats are perhaps a very special breed. Within hours of the disaster at Mousehole, the RNLI had a request for another vessel. It came from the same villagers who'd suffered so much grief. Today, that new lifeboat was being made ready for use in Wales. The 52-foot Barnet class is larger than the one lost in the disaster, but basically the same design. It won't be able to fit in the lifeboat house at Penlee, so instead it'll be anchored in the bay. Meanwhile, the Penlee Lifeboat Committee are busy gathering a crew who, just like their colleagues, will be prepared to help those in distress.
What's the reaction of the villagers at Mousehole towards crewing their lifeboat?
Well, I don't think this reaction is... The thing is, there's a boat coming. They're a village that have always been in tradition lifesavers, and they will crew the boat and get on with the job again.
So have you had any problem at all finding volunteers?
No, we've got no problem with volunteers at all.
And what sort of people are coming forward?
Well, the down-to-earth, salt-of-the-earth men that will go out. If there's somebody out there in trouble, they'll go and help them and try and save them. This has been done in the past, and it'll go on again in the future.
What are the special qualities that make any man go out to sea in a lifeboat in atrocious conditions, as it was over the weekend?
Well, you've got somebody out there calling for help, and if you're able to do it, you'll go. There's no problem. If somebody's out there asking for help, you'll go and help them. Do your best.
Even after a tragedy like this?
Oh, yes. Yes. We would go again just as a mark of respect for our comrades that are gone. They would go, and we will carry on in tribute to them.
And now some more of today's news. The MP for Taunton, Mr Edward Ducan, has asked the South West Electricity Board to publish the results of its inquiry into last week's power cuts. In a letter to the SWEB chairman, Mr Ducan said he'd had many complaints from people about the lack of information available from the board and called for reassurances that such widespread failures wouldn't happen again. Meanwhile, in the Taunton area, about 1,500 homes were again without electricity yesterday when gale-force winds brought down power lines. In Devon and Cornwall, high winds and rain also caused havoc. Trees were blown onto houses and roads, and a 25-year-old man from Honiton was killed when his car collided with a fallen tree at Ottery St Mary. For the second week running, Devon's emergency control room was manned to deal with extensive flooding around Exeter. Floods were reported from Colliford, Stoke Cannon, Rule, Heel, and on the A30 at Honiton Clyst. The South West Water Authority says it was mainly confined to fields and surface roads, and waters in East and North Devon are now subsiding. This morning, heavy snow in London delayed trains from the West Country, with Paddington Station closed for a while. The Exeter to Bristol line, shut for 8 hours yesterday because of flooding, has also reopened. Mr Jeremy Thorpe, the former leader of the Liberal Party, has described as absolute rubbish reports that he's being considered as a possible candidate for Taunton at the next general election. Mr Thorpe said he hadn't been in touch with anyone from Taunton and wouldn't be available to take on the candidature if it were offered. Torquay Athletic Rugby Club believe their players are being poisoned by toxic chemicals on the pitch. The club wants an investigation into treatment used when the pitch was reseeded last summer after minor cuts to 4 of their players turned septic.
Well, now the weather in the complex low over Ireland and southwest England will move east-southeastwards towards Germany, with a northeasterly airstream developing over the region. First then, tonight's weather, and the showers in Cornwall will die out early on, but there is some rain in eastern parts of the region. That's going to steadily move westwards across the region during the course of the evening and the night, and over the moors, or over the hills, and particularly over the moors, it'll turn to sleet or snow with moderate accumulations over the higher moors. It's going to be quite cold, in fact, inland temperatures dropping to near freezing, so later on we may get some icy stretches on the roads, but it'll be milder in the far west, in the Isles of Scilly, and down in the Channel Islands where they may have some sleet there. The winds will go northeasterly, about a force 3 to 4, and the visibility will be moderate, so a rather wintry evening and night. And then tomorrow we'll still have those sleet and snow showers inland, although there won't be too much of them, and it won't get very warm. Temperatures no higher than 4 centigrade, 39 degrees Fahrenheit. But the rain around the coast, as the day wears on, will gradually die out, so it will become dry there, and those winds will stay northeasterly, somewhere around about a force 3 to 5. So that's somewhere between, what are we talking about, 10 to 30 miles an hour, something of that order. In the coastal waters, the visibility remaining moderate, and still the chance of a touch of sleet down in the Channel Islands, which will have the warmest temperatures. Finally then to the outlook with our picture by 9-year-old Samantha Wynne of Sidmouth, continuing cold with further sleet or snow, especially on Thursday.
Thanks, Craig. Well, finally tonight, as the tributes to the Penlee Lifeboat crew continue, we end with a special tribute from a singer who knows well the dangers faced by all lifeboat crews. Brenda Wootton, who lives just along the coast from Mousehole at Penzance, recorded an album last year which included a song dedicated to the Royal National Lifeboat Institution. It's a song that reflects the unspoken fears of every lifeboatman's family, a song that recognises that whatever tragedy strikes, there will always be others waiting to make sure the traditions of the lifeboat service continue.
And the wind turns southwestward, blowing hard to the finish, taking roof tiles and branches in sport and in spite, and we snuggle down low and try to remember the boys who have been out all night. Then I think of the cars gathered down at Penlee from the time the Maroons called their owners away, and I know that the morning will show us the lifeboat riding safe in the peace of the I think of and Sennin for Faustock for Cleven and Penlee.
A dedication to the Penlee men, Brenda Wotton singing The Lifeboat, and she's arranged a special concert in Plymouth Guildhall on January the 4th as part of the Penlee Lifeboat Appeal. And finally, a reminder, if you want to contribute to the fund, the addresses are